Hi, Ken.
Hello. I'm, I'm on a new computer, so I'm not sure how well it's working.
Oh, we can see you and hear you.
Oh, okay, great. I won't play around anymore.
You're
I
even in the
guess-
middle of the frame, Ken, which is kind of unusual.
I have to say, after like months of meeting weekly, 2 weeks apart felt like a long time.
Speak for yourself.
Right. Hi, Neil.
Hi, Sabrina. Hello, everyone.
Hey, Neil.
All right, I'll start my spiel and then hopefully Anna can join at some point. Whew. All right. As chair of the Hopkinton Select Board due to COVID-19/coronavirus in accordance with Governor Sununu's Emergency Order Number 12 pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this board is authorized to meet electronically. Note there's no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to the meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. In accordance with the order, this is to confirm we're doing the following. A, providing public access to the meeting by phone with additional access by video. We're using Zoom tonight. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during the meeting through Zoom, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in the meeting through dialing 646-558-8656. Meeting ID is 340-316-049, or we've also provided a Zoom link. B, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We gave notice to the public of how to access the meeting using Zoom, and instructions are on the Town of Hopkinton's website at hopkinton-newhampshire.gov and on the Town of Hopkinton's Facebook page. C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anyone has a problem, call 603-746-8242, or you can email townadmin@hopkinton-newhampshire.gov. D, adjourning the meeting if the public's unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting, we'll adjourn the meeting and have it rescheduled. A few things to note: the meeting's being recorded. It'll be available to watch at a later time. The link will be on the town website. The board is unmuted. Everyone else is muted. And we will take people off mute during public forum. And all votes are done by roll call. So we will start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance, and then please state your presence and whether anyone's in the room with you, which is required under the right to know law. So I will start. This is Sabrina Dunlap. I am alone in my office. Stephen.
Stephen Whitley, alone in this room.
Jeff Donahoe.
Jeff Donahoe, alone.
Ken Trom.
Ken Traum, I'm alone.
And Anna Wells.
Anna Wells, I'm alone.
All right. Points of pride.
Sure. I just want to highlight, I was talking to a resident in the past week, and they were saying that every time they do something nice for the police department, they receive a handwritten note from the chief. So I just wanted to highlight that because I think that's a great thing to do and a really good thing to do. I'd also note that he coordinated, and then a couple members of the highway crew went and picked up all the election related PPE and all the things connected to the upcoming primary and general election. So that is all here as of now.
Good. All right. Thank you. Anyone else?
I guess I'll just thank the school board and everybody else involved in the school elections. They've persevered and, I think came out with something that most everybody in town was happy with or satisfied with.
Yeah. I would applaud their efforts too, and everyone again who helped out with voting day and ballot counting and all that sort of stuff. Seems like it went pretty smoothly, so it's come a long way since the original drive-through vote. All right, anyone else? Okay, so we can move on to approving the consent agenda.
I'll move we approve the consent agenda of August 17th, 2020.
Anyone want to second that?
Second.
Okay,
If we need it as part of the motion, I'll volunteer to go and sign tomorrow. Give Jeff a break.
yes, okay.
Happy to do it. Doesn't bother me at all.
Ken, do you want to still volunteer or?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so make that part of the motion. Okay, great. So Sabrina's yes, Jeff,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes,
Stephen,
Yes.
Anna,
Yes.
excellent. Okay. Now we have approval of the public meeting minutes from August 3rd, 2020.
so moved.
Second.
All right. Sabrina's a yes. Stephen. Oh, you're on mute, sorry.
Yes. Sorry.
Jeff,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes,
Anna.
Yes.
Okay. All right. We have approval of the non-public meeting minutes from August 3rd, 2020.
so moved.
Second.
All right. Sabrina's a yes. Stephen,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes,
Anna.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. We can move on to our appointments. The first thing we have is Sugar Hill Road residents regarding traffic.
Sure. So you received the emails. We've received several complaints about Sugar Hill, and it's kind of been out there. I know the police department has increased their patrols, and also the highway department took a look and found that there actually are 7 speed limit signs on that road. Just as a history, I think at one point there was a no through truck there, no through trucking, but Ware doesn't do it, so it was a concern. I know there's been one suggestion that Sugar Hill be no through trucks, and trucks coming in would have to go down Stumpfield. So that's a little bit of a background. This started sort of before we moved into town meeting, and now I think some of the residents are on, and if they can maybe go to participants and raise their hand, I'm happy to unmute them so they can talk. I'm not sure if any of them, here we go.
Yeah, I see 2. 3, more than 2. Okay.
Marion is unmuted.
Marion, you're unmuted on our end. There you go. All right. Marion, you with us? Seem to be having issues hearing her.
I can go to the next one, and if Marion, you want to rate.
Yeah.
Neil, while we're getting these people on, what's the current speed limit there?
I believe it's 35.
Okay, thank you.
So we have Nadine Ferrero.
Hi,
Hello.
how are you? Is everyone doing?
Great. Thanks for
Good.
joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. So I've been a resident of Sugar Hill Road for about 22 years now, and the traffic has always been somewhat of a problem, but I would have to say that lately it has become more of a problem. Um, The amount of trucks that are speeding down the road is over time, it's just become more and more of a problem. The amount of cars, motorcycles, and as you know, Sugar Hill Road sort of winds and turns and twists. And even with the speed limit of, I believe it's 30 or 35, um, people do not go the speed limit. And we have more and more families that have children. We have a lot of animals and pets in the area. And where my house is situated, I'm sort of like on a bit of a blind curve, but I know that there is a sign that states that there are like a blind drive. I cannot tell you how many times I inch out and inch out and inch out, and someone comes screaming around the corner. They slam on the brakes, I have to slam on the brakes. And, it happens with my neighbors across the street as well. I don't really have a solution. I'm not coming to you with a solution. I just don't have one right now. And besides maybe lowering the speed limit and upping police patrol, that may help. But other than that, it is a huge concern. It's a huge concern. And I just feel like it's only a matter of time that a fatal accident will happen, unfortunately, which we hope that does not. But so that's really my concerns.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing with us.
And I think Marion is there, and I think I misspoke, and the speed limit is 30, not 35.
It is.
Okay. Marion, are you with us?
We'll go to the next one and keep trying. Rick and Linda.
Hi. So
Hello.
Hi. So we live in conjunction with my folks at 141 Sugar Hill Road, and there's a farm involved, and it's on both sides of the road. And it's with great tentativeness and caution that we dare step a foot out in the road anymore these days. I grew up here. My parents have lived here for over 50 years. And obviously times have changed, the traffic has changed. But we moved back 7 years ago. 7 years ago, we've been living back here in the old homestead the last 7 years. And I would say in the last year and a half, the traffic has just increased exponentially. I'm not sure what brought that on, potentially the construction on 202. And then they resurfaced the road and made it a lot smoother, nicer, which we appreciate as well, but it tends to make people absolutely fly through here. And we've had farm animals. I've lost chickens on the road. I'm not sure how to train a free range chicken to stay out of the road. We've tried more fencing and all of that. And occasionally there's cows in the road, and the cars I feel like have more opportunity to stop if they're going fast even than these trucks. The trucks are just flying through here, and it's gotten scary. Like the previous person just said, it's just a matter of time. We have a lot of bikers, runners, walkers, a lot of activity on the road besides vehicles, and my folks walk pretty much every day, and I always pray they get back home again without an incident, because it's just very concerning how dangerous it's gotten on the road. And then there's the whole aspect of the water down at Drew Pond down there, and there's a lot of family activity. It's become a real hot spot during the summer for boating and just fishing, even right there by the water, and people just sail right through. And even if we're standing like right on the side of the road, they don't even slow down. They just, fly. So I'm not sure what we can do. Obviously, there's enough speed limit signs, and the people, I would say mostly the commuters, that are coming through, they don't care. They're just making time. So, and the truckers, I've called numerous companies that are associated with the truckers in hoping that they will tell their drivers to slow down. The only thing I can figure is to get another, no through truck sign back up again. Since that sign came down, the trucks have had, and I'm talking tractor trailer trucks, UPS, McLean, logging trucks, the tandem logging trucks. Yeah, and the dump trucks just come through just all the time. I mean, just sailing through here. So it's definitely a big concern for us.
Thanks for sharing. Would you say the increase in trucks has happened over the last year? Like, has that coincided with people going faster, or has one of them?
It coincided with the bridge that was out on 202 for a while when they were routing the traffic around one direction down into Kentucky. That's when it all started, and that's when the through trucking signs came down shortly after that.
And that's when the trucks have really, because I think at least the ones going the one direction, they'd see the no through truck sign, and it was pretty decrepit, but it really, it must have stopped quite a number of them, and they would just turn around out there at the end of the road and reroute some other way. With the whole era of GPS, that's what has turned this into a major cut through, because I mean, we all look for the shortest route, going from point A to point B, and it's just, they're just not abiding by the speed limits. So that's the,
Okay, thank you. So, and you said the no through trucking signs are no longer up, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thanks for sharing. We've got a few other folks who I think want to speak on this issue.
Marion is in the process of calling in.
Okay.
Next one is Anne.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi there. Yeah, I have spoken with Linda. I know that I'm a runner, and I know that the woman next door to me and then the woman next door to Linda are recent neighbors that are now running with baby carriages. And she's not at all exaggerating. I've seen 3 times the tandem logging truck just come flying down the middle of the road. I was able to get a license plate of a wide load truck my husband has seen it once and I've seen it twice. It says right on the front, wide load, and it's coming through with a flatbed that must have some kind of like a backhoe or some kind of a huge construction equipment on the back. And it just comes sailing down the middle of the road. And that's the kind of thing, I don't think we're asking for trucks that are legitimately here, but these trucks are just using it as a cut through. I've come around the corner in my car and had to go way over to the edge of the road because of how often you do come around the corner in the middle of the road. I think probably if there was any way to get those no through trucking signs back up. Last year I felt a little bit responsible because I noticed that the through trucking signs were at 2029 in Stumpfield, and there was a through trucking sign at Sugar Hill and 2029, but there wasn't one coming from Ware. And I actually called the highway, the town highway, asking for could we please get the sign up in the where section? And that's when he said, actually, not only can we not put the sign up there, but we have to take the other two down. And I was told it had something to do with federal money being used to help pave the road is the reason we can't get the signs back up.
Neil, do you know the story on that?
Not exactly. I do know that there is some money involved because it's Army Corps section, but I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
But I will check on that.
Okay. Was that Anne we were just hearing from? Yeah.
That
Okay.
was.
Thank you. Thank you, Anne.
Yep, thank you.
And I think Marion, can you hear us now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Okay. The only suggestion I might add to this is that since this is a road that does go through to Ware, perhaps we need to get the town of Ware involved in the problem as well. Because no matter what you do on this end of the road keeps on going into another town. And unless they're in cooperation and agreement on the changes, it's not going to have a significant effect. And the other thing which has been pointed out a little bit ago, Drew Lake is drawing more people this summer because of the other restrictions in town. There are a lot more people parking down there, taking their boats out, and having their children playing in the water of Drew Lake, which is great. I mean, they seem to be maintaining social distancing, but as was pointed out earlier, one of those little kids can dart out real quick, and with people coming through there, not at 30 miles an hour, but at 40 or 45 miles an hour, somebody's going to get hurt, and it's going to come back to the town because we may not have been as responsible as we should have been. The through trucking sign issue might help. At one time, there were even signs down at Drew Lake that indicated it was a turtle crossing because there is wildlife that does use the road as well as the people that use it. There seems to be a lack of respect for this area. And as is pointed out, the road is now much nicer and smoother. People tend to speed up there. They don't like me very well because I come up at 30 miles an hour because I lived here for 24 years and I want to keep living here for a few more years. I'm not sure what the solution is. I know the police have tried to maintain a little bit more vigilance. I'm not sure dropping the speed limit will help because the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit is not respected. Another thing which I don't know for sure, I once had a map which actually showed Sugar Hill Road as a cut-through on a highway map that I got from Shaw's years ago when I lived in Bath. I'm not sure what Garmin says. Garmin may be directing people through here. Has anybody looked into that issue? I mean, there are lots of different questions that need to be raised, but it still is an issue that needs to be addressed. And thank you for listening to our concerns.
Thank you.
Next is Arnado.
Hi guys, Rob Nato, 559 Sugar Hill Road. I'm not going to repeat too much of what's already been said. It's pretty clear. Lots of activity and a great deal of speed. The speed limit is 30. A little bit of a different on when the no through trucking came down, because it wasn't going to be on the Ware side. It couldn't be on the Hopkinton side because when somebody's made that way, if we put a sign up, there's no place for them to turn around. I don't know how much the folks in Ware are going to be helpful to us because I got a feeling a large part of our problem is a function of, people in their community wanting to get to 89 or 2029 a little quicker than going around. So that may be difficult. I'd be curious to know, Neil, what we could do through the state, as I understand that is probably our maybe most arduous option, but our best option for getting those no through trucking signs up. So whatever processes might be in place that way would be helpful. I did speak with Dan Blanchett at one point about, blinking speed limit signs, and we talked a little bit about cost and people just getting sort of used to them. And, it might be effective for a short term, but maybe not in the long term. I talked to the folks at the Army Corps and see if they could help us out because as somebody said, you know, the turtle signs went up and people thought they were cute, so they slowed down, I think, to read them. But the Army Corps says there's not much that they can do in terms of signage because it's not their road. Although they recognize the problem at Drew Lake, which is their property. My wife and I discussed, and her memory is better than mine, that at one point the road was striped. And honestly, I think if they're beyond the speed limit signs and while we're waiting for whatever action we can get from the state, either on no through trucking, I think if we could line that road, that would be helpful. There's plenty of research that says when roads are lined, and actually the wider you make the stripe, the slower the traffic will be because it creates that optical sense that this is a narrower pathway. Right now, there's really not much sense of the idea that there's a right or a left to the road. It's sometimes the whole road. So as a cyclist, it's a little bit death defying. So I do think that if it's possible for us to stripe it, that would be helpful to us. Like everybody else, I don't know the best solution, but I heard a little bit of rumor that the folks on Hatfield had some success with getting the folks that are doing the GPS apps to pull them off. And I don't know the process to make that happen, but that'd be another thing that we could look into as a community, I suppose. You know, the chief has done what he can, and I think Dan's done what he can. So it's got to be the state and maybe changing the way we're approaching it, or some different signage, you know, speed limit signs, recreational areas, might be something we could consider. Drew Lake does get a lot of activity. So.
All right, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Barbara Shaw.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Yes, okay. I live on Drew Road, right on the corner of Drew and Sugar Hill. And one of the issues that I've noticed is we have somewhat of limited vision. When people are coming from the Ware side, if they're speeding, just to get out of this little road can be an issue. That's one thing I have to say. The other thing I have to say is I was absolutely delighted to see the radar police down by Drew Lake because of all the issues that everybody else has brought up. I'm not going to reiterate them, but and I really appreciate having the time to have this brought up. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it for Sugar Hill folks?
Up, another one just went up.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm Kathleen Dustin, and actually I'm here to speak on something else. I have nothing to do with Sugar Hill Road, but I'm wondering about just more enforcement with actual speeding fines, because, you know, a couple of truckers get a speeding fine and the next, you know, they're not speeding as much. It seems to me that in the Hopkinton area, there aren't many fines made for speeding on roads, but, you know, just beef up the speeding tickets would seem to be a good help. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you for weighing in.
So on the other side, on College Hill, what we did is we jointly met with Henniker and we worked with them, and we could certainly try that with Ware, and did have some success. Henniker especially had success changing GPS directions. On that side, the issue was going to Pat's Peak. So, and both towns were working on that. So I'm happy to reach out to Henniker to find out how they were successful in the GPS, as well as set up a meeting between Hopkinton and Ware, and we can talk to them and see if they have any interest in looking at what we can do to help this issue.
Yeah, that would be great. I remember the PATS issue. I didn't realize they were successful with that GPS situation, but that could be helpful. And then I'm just wondering about the potential for other signs. Like if there's anything else we could put up that might help a little bit. Like I know on Gould Hill, they put up a yellow sign with an arrow that sort of slows people down a teeny bit. Something like that. If there's anything besides a speed limit sign that we could consider.
Especially as you go past through Drew Lake, where
Yeah.
there are a lot of people. I noted the recreation area sign but maybe some other signs like that.
And then Neil, who would know this federal, it seems kind of odd to me that we couldn't put backup signs that have been up, the no through trucking, but
Right.
who would.
I think the issue is more that if Ware doesn't have it, you can't have half a road.
Right, but didn't at one point it was the whole road, like on the Ware side and the.
I don't believe it ever was, but I don't know that for sure. But we can work with them and see if maybe that's one of the things.
And did those come down because of the work done on 202? That's what I thought I heard.
I think when there was a realization that the Ware side didn't have it and that trucks potentially could be stuck in the middle.
Okay.
But I'm not sure the whole sequence.
So maybe unrelated to the 202 work.
And I thought they had been down longer than that, but I'm not sure about that.
Anne Grease, I don't know how to say her name, sorry, has her hand up. I don't know if she has input on that.
Sure. They probably know some of these answers better than I do.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I don't remember the name of the man who's the head of the town highway department, but I had called last August, and that's when I had asked, because of the 2029 construction, if they could put the third sign up. And he called me back, and he was the one that told me that it was because of money outside of the town that they had to take the two signs that were up down. So I don't remember what his name is. Is it Dan?
Yep.
Yeah. He was the one that called and told me that. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
I think Marion's hand is up again too.
Oh, here we go. I think this is Marion.
Hello?
Hi.
Back again. Sitting here thinking, I remember years ago when we first moved in, the area around Drew Lake was a dirt road because it was part of the flooding of Drew Lake, which the Army Corps of Engineers can do periodically, because the road, that Sugar Hill Road, at least in that portion, is subject to gates and bars. At least it was. And I think that that's how your Army Corps of Engineers gets involved in the road. And they might need to put some input in this as well, or they might have some mechanism that would help ease the problem that we're seeing here as far as speed limits and no through trucking signs. Does anybody else remember that? Hello?
Remember when it was dirt? Is that what you're asking?
No, I'm remembering that this road was at least posted as being subject to gates and bars.
Oh,
because it can be closed if they flood it, and they have flooded it, not in very recent years, but they have flooded it periodically in the time I've been living here. When the water level is too high, they close the dam, this road floods.
mm-hmm. Yeah, so we can
So
look
I don't
into
know
that.
if you need to, yeah, you might want to put the Army Corps of Engineers into your thinking about it and see if they have any control over the road and what's happening on it before you
Mhm.
go too far. Okay?
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, and then Rick and Linda, do you have something to add on the
Well, I
road?
was just curious, you know, to say, yeah, we have to post the road no through trucks over on the Ware side. There is an intersection and the interchange there where the traffic could be routed out through Stumpfield Road.
That's right.
And I know that road is narrow as well, but the narrow part is very uninhabited. And the trucks could easily get through there. They would just have to go slow, much to their dismay. And they could still end up in the same place by being detoured out that way, rerouted out that way. They just get off at the exit there at the end of Sugar Hill Road and 89, and they'll end up in the same place. So it doesn't take them far out of the way, but it may, I don't know, it may make some people change their mind about, how much time they're cutting off and so forth by coming this way. And it would just obviously decrease on the trucking traffic if we could block the section from that intersection to the interchange out here, by 89.
We,
Great. Thanks for your thoughts.
we also, you still hear me?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we do remember whenever that was still dirt down there, and they still actually can close the road. They actually have signs at either end that tell people that the road is closed, and there are bars and gates down there that they can still shut. And that hasn't happened, I think, maybe only once since we've been living back here in the last 7 years. But they can still shut the road down and put up their signs saying that the road is closed. Matter of fact, I think somebody for a joke put up the sign that road is closed. So it actually helped traffic for about a day before they figured it out.
All right. Well, thank you guys. We appreciate the input and thoughts on this. The one other thing, I know not too many people touched on it, but the potential for lowering the speed limit. I know last year, I think it was, we sort of reassessed a few roads, maybe it was 2 years ago, and lowered it. And I know people obviously blow through speed limits, but I feel like some people, if they see 30, they're going to automatically go 40. Maybe if they see 25, they might only go 30 or 35. I don't know. It might help a little bit, but I know some people don't like lowering the speed limit to 25 for whatever reason. I happen to be a fan of slower driving and lower speed limits around town, but not everyone agrees with me. But what about striping, Neil? Would that be something that we could?
Well, I've made a list of everything that was mentioned, so we'll look at
Okay.
it and come back with, we didn't budget for striping, so that was something
Okay.
to look at especially for that distance.
Mhm.
But we can certainly look at that.
I was also going to suggest, if we're talking to Dan about options, and I don't know if this is more or less expensive than striping, probably more, but speed tables or speed bumps or something as you approach Drew Lake. Because that area, I know that area they're talking about, and it can get really congested, and you come around either direction, you come around and all of a sudden there's people there. So some sort of traffic calming would be, I think, really helpful. If there's an issue with really big trucks, I think we could look into weight limits on the road so that those big logging trucks, the tandem ones, might not fit within that weight limit. I'm not familiar with what they're talking about with the federal money and not being able to put up a no through trucking sign. So I'll be curious, Neil, kind of what you learn on that. In terms of speed limits, I think the lowest that we can go is 25, but it doesn't sound like it's a speed limit issue so much as it is an enforcement issue. So I would suggest maybe we reach out to Chief Pecora and ask about maybe a more prevalent officers there to start sending the message that if you speed there, you're gonna get nailed.
We'll include him in the comments, and I think he at different times he has done that.
Yeah.
In that area.
I would also be very supportive of the speed sign, the radar speed sign that has worked over here on Hatfield Road in the past. Just alerting drivers that we know that there's an issue here and we're watching you. And that would be something I would also suggest.
I've certainly biked on Sugar Hill quite a number of times, and I totally agree with what we've heard from the citizens, and agree we should be looking into all of those. And I'd like one of the last suggestions to look into, and that's closing off that part of Sugar Hill and rerouting traffic onto Stumpfield, because that does away with the Drew Lake issue.
My only question about that is I know that that section of Stumpfield where it diverges, where it comes off of Sugar Hill, has double guardrails on it, and it's quite narrow, like even for two just passenger cars passing each other. So I would have, I mean, I understand that it's the speed is an issue on Sugar Hill, and maybe that would be less of an issue on Stumpfield, but I would, if these truckers are going so fast and there's no shoulder whatsoever for part of this road, I might be concerned about that as well.
The other part about Stumpfield is that I don't know how much weight that road can accommodate. If we talk to Dan, it could be that diverting there is just going to give us a headache because it's going to just destroy the road. But I'm sure Dan can give us that information.
We'd have to look at the intersection at Stumpfield and 202 also.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a hard one to pull off of Stumpfield onto, it's especially going left. You basically
Left-hand
can't
would be
go
fine.
west off of Stumpfield, which could then potentially force the trucks to go like down Thane Road, or there will be consequences to any changes that we make. Probably a lot of unforeseen ones, but so I think the list of potential solutions that we have, from enforcement with actual monetary consequences for speeding, I think is really important. I think having that speed, I don't know what it's called, but the sign, I think, I'm not opposed to lowering the speed limit. I think Brainy's right that some people sort of automatically tack on 10 miles an hour to whatever the speed limit is. So if it gets reduced, I think that's fine. And I'm not sure about the through trucking issue at all, but adding signs around on either end of that straightaway at Drew Lake, I would very much support, some sort of signage there, just alerting people that they're coming on a congested area with pedestrians.
So we do have a 6 o'clock appointment that we're a little late for. So unless anyone has anything else very pressing, it seems like we have a good list to at least start looking into this. And thank you again to everyone who came to talk to us about this. So everyone's good. We can move on to our 6 o'clock appointment, which is Byron Carr to talk about the Artist Association. Hi, Jackson. Byron, sorry we're late. Thanks for joining us. You're on.
Oh, okay. I'm here to kind of represent the group of people that are trying to form a group of artists in town to say a little bit, and a couple other people will also say something just to make you aware of, what's going on. The arts are often turned to for helping revitalize economically challenged areas. Everything we see is a result of creative minds. Houses, roads, bridges, farms, artwork, music, all had their start in a creative mind. The library would be empty without the desire of someone to create something. There's a growing group of these creative people that are working on forming a group or a nonprofit to promote the creative people in Hopkinton. There are others that have expressed interest in supporting this endeavor. This group has the potential to add to the economic vitality of the town, both for the creative people and the businesses. It also hopes to enhance educational opportunities where those are shrinking in the schools. The group could also create public service projects that would improve the aesthetics of Hopkinton. We hope the select board will keep all these benefits to the residents of Hopkinton in mind as they discuss the future of the Bates building. And that's what I have to say. Supposedly some other people are going to be speaking also.
Great. Thanks, Byron. See Alyssa McCann.
Yep.
Got it right. Hi
All
there.
right.
Thank you for allowing the space to speak. My name's Alyssa McCann. I live on Crowell Road. I'm newer to town. I've only been here 2 years. I know some of your names and faces, but many I don't know or haven't had a chance to meet yet. To share a little bit about myself, since I'm so new to town, is that I have a background in theater as well as in nonprofit education. And I've had the great pleasure of being a community member who's really enjoyed the growing visibility of the art scene in this small town over the past 2 years since I've moved here. So we understand that any arts organization survives on both the engagement of the community, but also strategic management of their resources. So I'm here to speak about that because we believe there is a link between being able to have an arts association, being able to have space in which to have that, and being able to utilize Bates as our home. So we recently had the opportunity to survey the community. 53 people responded to our open call. 90% of respondents said that the most important thing an arts association in our town could do is provide exhibition space and sales space for local artists. 75% of respondents said they'd be interested in becoming a yearly due paying member in order to support this endeavor. About half of our respondents were artists and half, like myself, were not artists. I understand that 53 may not feel like a terribly large number, but 45 of those individuals could also envision themselves volunteering for the organization in some capacity to help it come to life. I hope you see what I see, which is a community who, despite the current health, political, and global turmoil, still sees it important to nurture and grow our own community at this time. The Bates Building has been home to the House of Art for 10 amazing shows, thanks to the generosity and kindness of the town and the select board. As the to-be-named art association, believe it or not, it's rather hard to name an art association. We hope to build on the foundation that Ruth and the House of Art have already set, and the quality and the bar that they've already set at the Bates Building. And so to that end, I'm here to ask you for 2 things tonight, not just talk to you about an arts association. Thing one is that I ask you to allow us to continue to utilize the Bates Building, to continue to call it home from what was the House of Art, but will hopefully become a more cooperative or nonprofit arts association. The other is that I ask you for 1 year of stability by keeping the rent at its current level, as well as not pursuing the Bates Building sale in the upcoming town meeting in 2021. And the reason why is that we believe within 1 year, we can spin up an economically viable arts association that could contribute to the town. But if where we're spending our energy is in having the ground shift underneath us, whether it's through rent or having to continue to lobby to keep the Bates Building as a home, it means that we can't focus on supporting artists, growing community involvement, and getting our financials in order to be of value to the town. So I'd like to leave you with why I feel confident we can even do this. I'm saying this in the middle of an economic crisis, as you all know. We have a private donor who's ensured that we can pay rent through the end of the year while we organize our finances. We have multiple pathways towards financial sustainability, including show-generated income, memberships, grant potential, traditional fundraising, and donor methods that we feel confident in meeting. There's currently one show happening at the Bates Building as we speak. It's called Trees and Woods. Go check it out. It's a really awesome, it's a masked show, only 5 people at a time, windows open, but I highly recommend checking out this art while you can. With the September Children's Art Show currently being curated and a holiday show with a physical and digital presence that we're just kicking off planning on. Because we believe in setting up the community and the artists to be able to showcase regardless of what's happening in the world around us. So we have no shortfall of opportunities and ideas to continue to generate activity at the building, as well as an operating income for the Bates Building. So thank you for your time. I'd like to pass it to Kathleen Dustin, who's going to talk a little bit more from her opinion as an artist and community member. But if it's helpful for me to send in over any of the numbers that I've referenced, please let me know where to send them. I'm happy to send them along. Or you can follow us at Hopkinton Artists Association on Facebook, where we're also sharing our community survey results with the community to be transparent about the data that we've collected. So thank you all for your time.
Thanks very much, Alyssa.
Hi, I'm Kathleen. Can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
I'm Kathleen Dustin, and I've lived here in the Kentucook area. I live on Dustin Road for 20 years, and I'm here just to reiterate what both Byron and Alyssa have said. I am a professional artist, and people often ask me, oh, where do you sell your work? Where do you sell your work in Kentucook? I don't sell my work in Kentucook. I have to go far away to sell my work. But it's not even this, it's that I would really enjoy the opportunity to show my work. And I think there are many people in the community who would love to see the work of all the professional artists that are in this community. And I could say that an arts organization doesn't really depend on a building. I mean, we could start an arts organization no matter what, but in this case, it really is tied to the Bates Building. And so, having a place for us to begin to show is really important. And it's such a wonderful little building. So I also reiterate that we would like for you to be able to keep the rent at its current amount as at least for a year as we go forward. There is so much energy that Ruth has opened up to the community in the opening receptions she's had. And to tell you the truth, what's really been impressive to me is that she's had some young artists, young up and coming artists who don't do what I would call the sort of standard, normal, small New England town art. You know, the wonderful landscapes and watercolor paintings. They do some very avant-garde art, and they have sold very well. So it shows me that there is an interest and a desire in this town to support this kind of thing and to become involved in it. So that's just kind of my input. Oh, well, one more thing is I mentioned this a long time ago. I really do think it would add to the economic vitality of Kentucook as becoming a destination, not just for us, but for all the little shops and the restaurants in Kentucook. And, I'm sure that all of us in Kentucky would love for our little town to become a destination for others. Thank you very much for listening to us.
Thank you. Anyone else for the Artists Association? All right. Well, thanks, Byron, and everyone who came to talk to us. We appreciate it.
Would it be possible to get those survey results that the Art Association just spoke of? I don't know if anyone
That was
from
Alyssa, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone's still on the call, but
Looks like
I also, Alyssa, did you, I think they got sent out to people on their mailing list. So I think I have access to them. I can.
You are
forward them.
correct. We're also now live on Facebook. So you can check us out on the, it's our temporary name of Hopkinton Artists Association. We have both a page and a group for engagement. They're posted there live. They are aggregated. So you can't see individual responses, but we were pretty thorough. And the types of questions we asked, just so you're aware, included, why are you answering the survey? What are you interested in? What should be the mission or purpose of this organization? What would be a way in which you envision yourself being involved? We also asked questions about membership and price points to better understand what folks were willing to put in to help us in some of our initial crafting of what our pathways towards economic sustainability would need to look like.
can I ask another follow-up, Brittany?
Yeah.
Alyssa, I don't know if you or Byron, I mean, do you guys have like a long-term kind of plan for the Bates building? I mean, does it involve you guys potentially purchasing that if the town ever kind of cleared the hurdles that we're all too familiar with at this point to do something like that?
Long-term, anything is possible, Stephen. I don't want to say no, but I don't want to say yes. We currently have a 90-day plan. The first 30 days is focused on how would we organize, how would we run, and what is our access to physical space, which is why being here tonight is so key. The next 30 days is focused on projects. What would it look like if we have a confirmed physical space to actually start mapping out a yearly calendar? Because as you know, best laid plans means we actually need to be planning 6 to 12 months out. We can't be going month to month. And then our last 30 days is to check sustainability. How are things shaping up against the goals we initially put out? And do we actually think we can do this? Which is why we're asking for that 1 year, because at the end of that 90 days, I think we'll be able to say roughly we have to adjust this or try something different, or maybe we had better luck with grants than fundraisers, right? But we really need that year to figure out what does programming and what does it look like. But Stephen, to your point, I think regardless of who owns the Bates building, I think the energy associated to it is the historical significance to the town, what it brings to the town, its location, but then also from a nonprofit perspective, it's knowing that by being able to lease it from the town or rent it from the town is investing in this arts organization. Leasing from anyone else, as we know, a number of different storefronts have opened up downtown, puts us at the mercy of a more for-profit system that we clearly can't afford right now. So that's one of the other reasons beyond saving the Bates building that we're deeply interested in it, is that it gives us a home base that we can afford at a time when arts organizations are being squeezed across the country.
Thank you.
So under old business, our first thing is use of the Bates building. So seems like it's an appropriate time to discuss what we just heard and use of the Bates building, unless I'm missing something, Neil.
Absolutely. I just want to pass on that I did have an email from a professional office person who showed some interest in potentially leasing. So that was the extent of the email, though. But they're currently leasing somewhere else, so I don't really want to release who that was at this point.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
And there was nothing definite. It was just an inquiry.
When does Ruth's lease of the building run out?
She is month to month because that's how it was set up, not knowing what the future would bring.
Right.
Last meeting said that she had paid through September.
That is correct. She is paid through September.
Yeah.
And Neil, if I remember correctly, we could not enter into a lease longer than 364 days.
Not without town meeting approval.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I mean, I love the concept of this. I think it's a really nice idea and a nice use of the space. And I agree, I forget who said it, maybe it was Kathleen, about how it adds like a nice sort of cultural thing to Kentucky. I mean, part of just sticking with what we have is that we are, you know, obviously in some unstable times. So there's something to be said for the value and, you know, not having to deal with a new tenant, not having to mess around with other lease issues. I guess there'd be some question around who would actually be the entity leasing it, if it would still be Ruth, or if it would actually be this organization, if they are actually a 501c3 or whatever, an official legal entity. But in any event, I mean, I don't personally have a problem with the request of sort of sticking with what we know and giving them a year to try to get this off the ground and sort of check in, you know, a year from now and see how things are going. And I think, you know, we've dealt with the bait situation twice now. And even though the first time around it was incredibly close, and I still think there's very rational, good reasons for us to consider selling it, I also appreciate, you know, the need for art and culture, especially at this time in our lives. So those are just my initial thoughts. I don't know if anyone else wants to speak on this.
I guess my question is, what should we subsidize, this nonprofit or some other nonprofit? Or should we get a market rate for the property? You know, the rental agreement we have sort of covers the cost, but I don't think it covers all of the costs. And as several people said, you know, during the debate over the Bates building, there's going to be some significant capital expenditures coming along with that building in the not too distant future. And so, you know, from that perspective, it's way under what a market rate would be. I don't know who the potential tenant Neil talked to, or what the discussion was relative to potential revenue, but we're not making anything on the building, and we have no capital reserves to deal with issues for the building. So, you know, from a property management perspective, we don't have a way to deal with that furnace breaking down. And, you know, we may want to look at that. And if we don't want to, we want to lease it at a below market rate, that's fine. You know, why this organization versus some other organization would be my question.
Jeff, do you have a feel what the market rate would be for just renting out the top floor, the ground floor?
So I talked with a couple folks, you know, they said $2,000 to $2,400 a month for the building. Obviously the first floor is more valuable than the basement. You know, it's probably $1,400 to $1,600 a month for the first floor. You know, again, it's all theoretical at this point, but you know, it's money's money, I guess.
Yeah. So I agree with both what Brini has said and what you've said, Jeff. I think I think it's a wonderful effort that people are putting together, and I think it sounds like maybe with Alyssa's help, they've been able to get organized, get a plan together, think about the future, think about, you know, how they might make this a sustainable endeavor. So I really applaud that. I think that's fantastic. And all the outreach that they've tried to do to the community and getting opinions, I think that's fantastic. And I absolutely agree with all of the points that were made about, you know, economic vitality and bringing folks into our village. I think that's all completely valid. But I think I wouldn't be doing my job as a select board member if I were not concerned about the foregone income that we potentially could be garnering from this building. And I think I'm not convinced that we would get a full fair market rent on this building because of the complications of being owned by the town, first of all, and the known upcoming larger repairs that would have to be made. But I think that my position, I think at this point, and I'm totally open to having this conversation, I think as long as this is not a money losing endeavor for the town, yes, there are carrying costs and there is potential for opportunity cost here as well. But I think as long as we are being, as a town, fiscally responsible, not allowing this to be a money losing endeavor, I think that I would support keeping the rent under fair market value, allowing this arts association to try to get off the ground. But we would need to be sure that we could cover the costs of the building. And I know that we did that through rent for the past year plus, or I don't know how long, almost a year roughly. But we may need to bump it up a little. I don't know that it's realistic to keep it quite as low as it's been. But again, I'm very supportive of the concept, and I'm open to having a dialogue and a conversation about it to try and make it work.
Yeah, and oh, go ahead, Stephen. Were you gonna say something?
Yeah, just there was a question about what's the current rent. Neil, do you have that information at hand?
Yes, it's $400 a month.
Okay. So I think agree in principle with what everyone's saying. I think the idea of an arts association attracting people to Kentucook is great. I think that would feed into promoting other local businesses. I agree that I think the rent needs to be higher. I don't know if we need to be making money off of that for the time being, but I think we certainly need to be covering the operating expenses of the building. And I also think we should be covering or including the real estate taxes on it if it were to be held by a non-town entity. And I think legally we can do that. We just have to put it into a formal lease agreement with whoever's leasing it, that they're responsible for the property taxes on it. I had a question though, Neil. So the building currently has a restriction on it that it can only be used for what, public purposes?
Yes, I believe I'd have to pull the exact agreement, but yes, public.
Yeah, so, an office is not, I don't think, going to fly as a public purpose. So until we get that restriction lifted, we are limited in how this building can be used. So I think we need to keep that in mind. The other thing I think we should do, maybe no matter what, is to go ahead and subdivide this from the gazebo lot. I mean, there's no reason why I don't think we can't do that now. That'll help with the assessment of the property for any sort of real estate property taxes we want to levy on it. And if and when in the future we do get authority to sell, that step will have been completed. I think that I'm open to a year term or no more than a year. But I think at the same time that we're giving the Arts Association a year to kind of see how this all shakes out, I think that we should continue researching the various issues that we've talked about if we were going to sell it. So, dialogue with the supervisors and the town clerk and the archive committee about what to do if that building is no longer owned by the town. So I think we can do most of this stuff simultaneously. But I think as a kind of a initial thing, I think the rent should probably be higher, maybe not market rate, but higher. And I think we need to, and I'm open to doing it for a year. And I think we should subdivide the property.
And Stephen, I know that you'd never want to give the town legal advice.
True.
It is a private nonprofit, a public purpose.
Maybe. I mean, it depends, you know. I think
Maybe it's a question for town council.
Yeah, I think it's it's an easier argument if you're a nonprofit than if you're renting it out for office space. But you know,
I agree with that.
And I would tend to think that because there's public access, that is closer to an argument for a public use.
Yeah, that's probably true.
It's open to the public right now with restrictions because of, you know, social distancing and things, but it's open to the public. So,
I mean, one of my, you know, motivations for wanting to sell the Bates building was to get it back on the tax rolls and to have it be, you know, an anchor kind of business for the area. And I'm starting to think that, you know, maybe there's a way that you can accomplish those things while the town retains ownership. But, you know, I think we need to get that public purpose restriction lifted, get it subdivided, and maybe go to town meeting to get authority to enter into more than a 1-year lease. Because I can't imagine anyone is going to want to rent it from us for not more than a year, knowing that there are those capital issues kind of looming, as Jeff mentioned. So if we want to go in that direction, there's some things that we have to do. And maybe that's the way to thread the needle with the people in town, because if we retained ownership, we could, you know, probably retain some ability to store the documents in that building. So that's just trying to think of some other options to deal with all these various issues.
Yeah, I think, Stephen, what you say makes a lot of sense, and I'm just trying to figure, okay, if we were to give the arts group a 1-year lease, maybe at $400 a month through the end of this calendar year, and we decide maybe to jump it up to $700 for the remainder of the lease, and put that extra money into a reserve for capital expenditures that we anticipate we're going to incur, recognizing that the $400 they pay now more or less covers utilities.
that sounds reasonable to me.
I guess the question is, can we actually do that kind of a reserve fund for non-designated maintenance?
Why I said, you know, after December is because we're going to be looking into a new budget year. And at that point, I think we could develop a reserve.
I mean, we'd have to go to town meeting to get approval to create it. But at that point, you know, whatever we've accumulated, we could then raise and appropriate into that fund, assuming it's set up.
And the subdivision idea, I think, is also important, but how are we going to pay for that as well is a question, because it's cheap, but it's not free. So
I feel like we might have to eat that cost. I just don't know if we can pass that along, because even if we weren't renting it out, we'd want to be getting ready to sell it. So I don't know. And I mean, other than the cost of a survey,
right?
I mean,
Legal
what
fee.
other?
Yeah,
that's probably about it.
Yeah,
which is
Yeah,
not
and
inexpensive, but
Yeah, I was just gonna note that I do think that's a great idea, and I think that's important to move forward. I think just thinking about the vote this year, 40% of voters wanted to give us authorization to sell it. So I think it's worth, as you say, somebody mentioned threading the needle. I think that's what we're trying to do here, and I think Ken's idea is a good one.
Okay. So next steps, I guess. What are our open questions? I know we wanted to see the survey results, but
I think we need
I
to double check the restriction on the use of the property.
yeah,
Figure out if we are going to bump up the rent, what that would be. And as Ken said, does that happen immediately? Does that happen January 1?
right.
And then sounds like look at what subdivision would look like, which I think was the survey
Yeah.
you were speaking of.
Yeah, I think we should discuss how much acreage, one of the potential uses for that building, if it were to be sold, could be in addition to the back of it, which would create more space, more usability, potentially a multifamily situation, potentially business and multifamily, a mixed-use building. I just wouldn't want to short it too much if we didn't have to, but I think there's some wetlands back there, and I don't know what the setback requirements are from the river, and those are other issues, but we shouldn't just jump and say the minimum amount if we don't have a use for the rest of the property.
Yeah.
Yeah, though I will say, if you look at the lot, it's a very clear spot for where to just draw, connect two corners, draw a line. It's very straightforward, given where the parking lot is and how far that goes back and where the stream is back there. So I think it would be a very straightforward operation to survey and subdivide.
Yeah, I don't know the lot at all.
I see Janet's hand is up. Public comments not for a while, but I assume she wants to speak on this. So unless anyone objects, I'm happy to bring her over.
Well, that's fine.
All right, Janet.
Am I on?
You are. Hi.
Okay, hi. I just wanted to ask you not to make a decision on this tonight. Some of the speaking sounded like you were ready to make a decision, and I know the art center or the art people talked to you 2 weeks ago about wanting to rent this and so forth. But I think we need to do a lot more checking. And one of the things that I will talk to you about in public time is putting the town clerk back in that building. I did not know that apparently there was a lot of I don't know, I wouldn't call it damage, but money that needs to be spent on it. I was not aware that there was issues with that building at all. I had not heard that. But I just would like to have the opportunity to talk to all of you and for you not to make a decision in this week or even in 2 weeks as to what could be done with that building, because I don't think you're giving many people a chance to tell you how they feel. And I think that a survey should be done to find out why people voted against selling the Bates Library. There were enough people And maybe they weren't all feeling the same way, but maybe they were too. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Janet. Appreciate it.
I just, if I could clarify, I think the survey, Janet, that we were referring to was the survey of the physical dimensions of the lot, not a survey of the voters about why they voted a certain way. So I just want to make sure.
Yeah, and the other surveys, what Alyssa McCann mentioned, that they did, the arts folks did their own little survey.
Right.
So Janet, is your hand back up?
No.
Hi.
I guess I am now. One of the things that I wanted to ask you to do is do a survey of the people in town.
Gotcha.
Not the two that you talked about. So that's why I put my hand back up.
Gotcha. Okay.
I would like to see another survey done to find out, what people had in mind when they voted against selling the Bates building. And it wasn't just once, it was 2 different years. And I think if you put it back up again to sell, some people would come unglued. We might have some kind of a protest in this town. So anyway.
All right. Thank you for clarifying, Janet.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure you understood what I wanted about a survey. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I mean, I'm a little torn because part of me thinks, I think made a compelling case for why the building should be sold from a purely economic standpoint, and people didn't agree. So to some extent, obviously we need to be responsible and do the best we can in terms of getting as much money as possible. But on the other hand, that seems like that was not a priority based on the vote. So I'm curious to hear what others think about the possibility of trying to survey folks. I mean, at some point, the town owns the building and we're really sort of the stewards of deciding like what happens to that building. And so I think at some point we could drive ourselves crazy trying to figure out how to please everyone or please the most people. And I think we do just have to make a decision that we think is best at some point. Although I don't disagree with Janet that I don't have a problem, not committing and potentially giving folks a chance to weigh in at another meeting or do a survey, but how do other people feel about that?
I'm fine holding off. I think, I don't think we can wait through September. I think we need to let Ruth know whether she is or is not in that space after September. Yeah. So I think that's sort of a hard deadline. But I have a sense that what Janet's trying to get at is the idea of moving the town clerk tax collector's office back to Bates, which is a whole other conversation and another can of worms. Period.
Yeah. Yes, agreed.
I'm fine not making a decision right now. I wasn't thinking we would do that anyways, just based on the questions that have been raised. So yeah, I wasn't thinking we would do that tonight.
What's our September meeting schedule?
You're meeting August 31st and then September 14th and 28th.
I mean, I think we need to make a decision on September 14th in order to, first of all, give Ruth some kind of notice if she's going to have to relocate or close up shop.
I agree.
Seems only fair.
I mean, it may be, and I'm just tossing this out there, that, we need more time to decide. And so it's just kind of fair to give her an extra month in there, or even through the end of the year, and just, whatever arrangement we work out starts January 1. So just,
I guess the question is if she wants to continue. I wasn't really clear from our last conversation with her whether she just wanted to pass off the space to someone else. And so if you know, that's her, if she paid through September and October 1st, she wants to be doing something else. I guess we need to know that. Maybe Neil, you can ask her.
Yeah, I see Alyssa's hand is up. She might, and Ruth's hand is up actually. So maybe we could bring them over.
Here, hi, Ruth.
Oh, Bruce went down.
Oh, Ruth is gone. Alyssa.
Ruth, don't let me speak on your behalf. So if I'm saying anything wrong, you put that hand right back up. But I will say, like, yes, we are interested. We'd like to plan a holiday show. We'd like to be planning these things that will ultimately help artists move online, sell their art, particularly at a time when things like the Historical Society are not hosting their holiday show. But to do that, we need stability. We can't be guessing at where we're going to be. And to your point about space, there are multiple spaces now opening up in downtown. There are shops that are closing up and leaving, and we're offering to come in and say, we want to generate income for artists who might otherwise not be able to sell their wares. I'll also say that the later we push the decision, and obviously I don't want to push you too hard because then you'll probably get to no. No is easier than yes. The later we push it, the harder it is to actually plan a schedule that gets us to stability. In order for us to actually make it, we need to be planning 6, 9, 12 months out, lining up shows, getting members. And for folks to commit that, in order for us to pay any increase in rent, we need as much notice as possible. So all that to say, I would love for Ruth to jump in and say, like, what's her thoughts about going to the end of the year? But from our perspective, if you want to raise the bar, understandably, we just need as much notice as possible so that we can do the work, and we're willing to do the work to set up the shows and the income and the memberships and the grants that not only support the town, but support the artists and the community in the town.
Alyssa, is your understanding that, so it sounds like it's not like Ruth will continue on, but then share the space with the Artists Association. The lease would actually be with the entity that you all have.
Ruth will be an integral part of it. We could not do it without her and her vision. And we are exploring what it would look like to be a 501. We don't know what type yet. We're also exploring what would it mean to stay informal as well. I understand that that does have ramifications on the lease and how we would sign it, that I'd want to work out whether it's in this space or another space. But right now in this 30-day period we're in the first part of our plan, we are determining what structure best services our needs, which does relate to whether or not we need to be signing legal documents like spaces.
All right, thanks for coming back on.
Of course.
I would just raise the question that Janet raised. This board has decided the last 2 years that the clerk's office, town tax collector is going to stay in town hall. Is that something we want to revisit?
I'm shaking my head. I would say no. You know, we've I feel like made that decision, explained it a couple times. Even if by things falling the way they are, we don't end up with the ability to sell the building. I don't think it's a good idea, sitting where I am, that we put the town clerk tax collector back in the Bates building. So, I get that people can disagree and wish we thought otherwise, but I guess I don't think we should reconsider that.
And I agree with you. And I just wanted to take a variable off the table. That to me, the variable is, do we want to rent it to the art association at what kind of a price, or do we want to, try to sell it again? Not to bring the tax collector back. And I think, the people that want it to be moved back have to realize that the select board's not there.
Yeah, I agree with you both. And I don't know if more people would have voted to sell it if they, I suppose, understood that we weren't having this conversation, although none of us indicated that we were going to have a conversation about moving back. So, okay, so it's a little unclear who we'd actually be leasing the building to, if not Ruth, but I guess that's an open issue.
And I think it's one that can, sorry, I've got cows mooing in the background, but I think that's a question that can be answered in the next 30 days. I mean, that's essentially, we have about 30 days until we are saying, like, let's try to make some sort of a decision on September 14th, at least a short-term one. So, and I think if the new arts group in this next 30 days comes up with what is their structure going to look like, and will it be an individual who's going to be signing this lease, or will it be a 501 that's going to be signing the, what, you know, that's something that we would want to know. So I guess I'm putting that out there, so that by the 14th, when we are saying we'll need to sign our next month's lease, if that's what we decide to do, we'll need to know who that entity is going to be. Right.
Yeah, and I guess my concern is, if it's not a 501c3, do we have different obligations in terms of leasing town property to a private individual versus leasing to a 501c3? And I don't know the answer. It just seems to me that if it's going to be an individual who's essentially getting a subsidized rent, that some other person may want that for their pet project.
I don't know the answer to Jeff's question. It's a really good one. I was just going to say that, you know, we could, I guess we're going month to month, but I mean, if depending on how long it takes the art association to figure out
Left us hanging, Steve. Well, I suspect a part of what Stephen was going to say, and Jeff, you've raised this, is just getting at this issue of, like, I guess it's sort of, I don't know if there's a legal obligation, but to like, you know, offer this up to more than one group, but I guess a matter of fairness, if there's other groups that are interested, do we need to entertain that? I mean, I still think there's something to be said for the fact that we already have an established lease arrangement with, well, I guess with Ruth, so slightly different, but sort of same group. Steve, you were cut
I don't
off.
think we're obligated to open it up to other people necessarily. You know, we, as the select board, control town property. So if we want to rent it to someone based on the best terms under the circumstances, we can do that. I was going to make the point that depending on how long this all takes, you know, we could enter into an agreement with Ruth and give her the ability to assign the lease to whoever the arts association, whatever entity they become. And, you know, that way we wouldn't have to know that they're going to be a 501c3 or a nonprofit or for whatever. But that doesn't deal with the issue that Jeff raised about, we have this public purpose restriction on the property. You know, does that mean because of that restriction, we're limited in who or what we can enter into an agreement with? And I don't know the answer to that. So that's something else I think we need to keep in mind. But one other thing, September 14th to me feels like we're going to be scrambling to have all these answers by then. So I don't know how realistic it is to say we're going to be ready to make a decision on this by September 14th. I almost think that we need to just say, you know, there's a lot of moving parts to this. We're only meeting once every 2 weeks. You know, we may just want to ask Ruth if she wants the building through the end of the year. If she does, just extend the arrangement until January 1 and give us all some breathing room to figure this all out. And if she doesn't want it, then, you know, then we can figure out from there. But that may be the easiest way to give us the time we need to answer some of these questions.
Took her a while, but her hand is up.
Hi, Ruth.
Hi, Sabrina. Thank you all for your careful attention to all these matters. I definitely want the building till as long as, you know, as Alyssa said, we're hoping that you'll open it for a year. I'm part of this group. I see it as a very, as a seamless transition, whatever the technicalities may be. This is how I see, I'm very hopeful that the Artists Association will build on what little we've done here and created an expectation in the town that there's art and music going on in that building. The reason I raised my hand, besides just to answer your really specific question, is that the issue with running an art gallery is that you have to look ahead. You have to plan 6 months ahead. You can't sort of know November 15th that you are or not going to have a space, because you have to be planning your shows way out. It's an operation that looks kind of simple, like you just have one show at a time, but in reality, you're juggling all the shows that are coming up. So yes, as Alyssa said, I think pretty clearly, we want the building. We're working really hard to try to figure out what we can pay. And I guess I would just add one thing, is that we're basically on your side. We want to support the town financially. We're not trying to get something for nothing. It's just that we're at the beginning here. We need a little time to be able to apply for things. Deadlines, we've already missed an important deadline that happened in July. So we just need a little bit of time. And I think there will come a time, it may take a couple of years, when we can pay a high rent and you'll be happy. But just, we need a little breathing space here. So that's all I want to say. The answer is yes, we want the building.
Thank you, Ruth. All right, I see Candy's hand is up.
Good evening. Candy Garvin, 515 Bound and Gagged Tree Road. You're having such fun. Well, here's my suggestion. Just a suggestion. Research what you really want for that building. Have the answers before you come to us. That's not a threatening thing. That isn't a mean thing to say, but you've been here before. It would be easy for me to say, I think the town tax collector and town clerk should go back there. It would give you more room, give you more time to decide on how you're going to renovate the town hall to have all of the government offices there, because it's going to take more than $1 million for that. And you won't get that $400 every month and put that someplace, you know, to put it in a contingency fund or a repairs fund. But that's not why I'm saying this. Ruth has a great point. Most places that need to do business need to do it ahead of time. And that's a terrible thing to put on your shoulders, but that's why you have broad shoulders. You can do this. The town also, 60% voted not to sell it. 40% said to sell it. So that tells you more than half, again, numeracy, math, chicken and pigs, whatever you want to call it, that tells you that more people did not want to have Bates leave. And for other reasons, and I appreciate that you are the town fathers and mothers, but you can listen to your constituents and you'll have a better time. And I think that people will help you with that. If there's anything I can do, my first suggestion is find out how much the damn boiler is going to be. That shouldn't be a big thing. So do those little steps before you come back. It's okay. If you need some help, call one of us. We'd love to help you however we can. And that's the true story. I appreciate everything you do, especially the one from Massachusetts. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Candy.
Thanks, Candy. That's me, by the way.
To
So
be fair, I'm from Massachusetts too originally.
I won't say on camera what.
I think I might be the only native New Hampshireite here because Ken, aren't you?
I am.
All right, Neil and Robin, stick together.
Born and raised, never
All right.
leaving.
Now that we've cleared that up. I mean, I'm just thinking about, like, I appreciate Jeff's point about, and Anna touched on this too, trying to do what's financially best for the town. But I do think we're a little constrained in terms of the fact that we can't do longer term leases, something that would be sort of more in the norm for like a commercial lease. And then there's also this issue, it's the the deed restriction you're talking about, Neil, or what's the actual restriction about the use? Like, I know that
It was the probate court decision.
right. Yeah, okay. So we've got that issue as well. So it seems to me that we do have a lot of things to answer. I think my sense is we're in agreement that we don't want to open up a conversation, inviting, bringing back on the table this notion of moving the town clerk back to Bates. Although I don't know how people feel about, doing another meeting where we gather more input about people's thoughts on what could go in that space. I think given all of the open questions and uncertainty and the fact that, I'm sorry about the barking dog. I mean, we might want to think about at town meeting, assuming it happens in March, putting something to the voters about empowering us to enter into more than, a 364-day lease. And that might open up our options. And then in the meantime, we can continue month to month with the arts organization. I mean, I hate to say to them that we can't, I'm sorry about the barking. Hold on. Sorry. I hate to, they're obviously putting a lot of effort in. I really like the concept. I think it could be really great. I do agree. Like, I get that they need time to ramp up. They need time to plan. So I hate to say, like, we can't commit, but unfortunately, I don't think we're in a position to fully commit to anything beyond saying we'd love to give it more thought, answer some questions, and in the meantime, continue with this month-to-month arrangement that we have. So I would be inclined to, we've got one more August meeting. Do people want to put this on the agenda for our next meeting so that folks can come and share their thoughts, or do we not? I mean, that opens us up to further conversation about moving operations back there. But on the other hand, it could be helpful to hear from people in the public before we make any decisions.
I mean, I'm fine having a kind of a public forum so people can voice what they would like to see, for the Bates building. But I part of me thinks that we need some answers to some of these questions for that conversation, and 2 weeks may not give us a lot of time to get some of those answers. And so maybe if we're going to have a forum, it ought to be like a month from now or 2 meetings from now. And the other thing is that, we don't have to do month to month with Ruth. We just can't do a year. So, if it's easier for everybody to have, say, a 3-month extension of the lease or 6 months until the next town meeting, we can do that. So we're not locked into month to month. If that gives us and Ruth some stability while we work all this out, then maybe that's what we should do as well.
I'd be supportive of of extending Ruth's lease at the 400 a month through the end of the calendar year, as one step along the process. And then we can, look into the other questions that people have. And certainly a public forum, well, people have the opportunity, it's been noticed for this meeting, they have the opportunity to speak.
So Ken, your point is, I mean, there's been ample opportunity, I would say, to discuss Bates. But are you saying, Ken, you don't think we need to do like a special public hearing on this?
No, I don't think we have to.
If we were to do that, my concern would be that it would just turn into an argument about the town clerk and tax collector being relocated. And it seems fair, even though I'm new on the board, it seems fairly clear to me that's not going to happen. And so, I don't want to have a public hearing where the same argument is rehashed over and over again. We want to do something with Bates. That's great. I don't think we can have continuing argument about whether the town clerk tax collector should go back there. It's just, it's a waste of everyone's time and effort.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to add that I agree with Ken's thought about extending Ruth through the end of the year at the current rate structure, just to give us time to answer all these questions and give everybody some certainty for another 3.5 or 4 months or whatever it is.
I'm fine with that as well, Stephen. Ken.
Anna?
I think we do need to resolve whether, I'm sorry, go ahead. I think we need to resolve whether the building can be used for other purposes. I don't know how that gets accomplished, if it's the probate court or the charitable foundation or trust or whatever. But I think that issue is central to the future use of the building, and we need to resolve it.
And I think it is charitable trusts. And I seem to remember that we did reach out to them at some point in the past and got some direction. So the answer may actually be in what they've already given us. We just need to, kind of refresh our memory. But if it's not in there, then that's, I think, who we ask is, what can we do? What fits within whatever the language is in that probate court decision?
When we reached out to the charitable trust, it was, could we sell the building and how the proceeds be divvied up? I don't think it was actually addressing the specific concern that Jeff is raising.
Yeah, and my best guess is that based on that decision from 98 or maybe 99, I mean, I suspect we would likely have to go either back to court or get some sort of approval from charitable trust or whatever to do something with the building that didn't fall within that broad definition of it's something like the benefit of the town or something. Although then again, that was all under the sort of idea of selling it. So anyway, but yes, I do agree that that's something we should figure out. So did we start with, when we looked into that last time, did we go to town council first and then to see charitable trusts, or did we just, I can't remember how that all shook out.
Yeah, I think you spoke with Tom Donovan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We met with, Ken and I met with Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to look into that issue and maybe see if I can just get a hold of Tom or someone at Charitable Trust to get their like initial thoughts on this.
Yeah.
Neil, do you need a motion or something to make the offer to Ruth, or is it just a phone call by you to her?
This continues what is already in place. So, but maybe you should do a motion to extend it through the end of the year, then we have it clear.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right. Okay, Sabrina, I am yes. Jeff,
Motion, sorry. I was cold. I had to go get a blanket. What's
the motion is to just keep doing what we're doing through the end of the year, but make that commitment to Ruth.
Got it.
So,
Jeff, yes.
all right, Ken,
Yes.
Anna's yes. All right, Stephen.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. So I'll look into the restriction issue, and then I mean, a couple of these things, you know, the subdivision I feel like is something like, I don't know that that needs to be sorted out before we sort of move ahead with making a decision about the arts folks, but I guess if people continue to think about the rent issue, and I know that's sort of contingent on the restriction, but it seems like that'll be the next piece of the discussion.
If I could ask Neil to just give us some kind of an idea on what kind of capital expenses we may be looking at if we continue to own the building.
Sure.
All right, thanks everyone who weighed in on that. Our next issue under old business is George Park update.
I'm wondering if you want to jump around a little. I know people are here concerned with the election. The moderator, Sarah Prashino, is on.
Yes, good call, good call.
I had estimated for them that you would be there at 6:30, so.
Okay, yes.
Right on time.
Thank you, Neil. So let's flip old business and new business, and we will pause old business and go to the election grant. Hello, Sarah, our esteemed town moderator.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can even come back to the grant, maybe do the election part that Sarah's doing, and then we'll come back.
Okay, that sounds good. Sarah, take it away.
I appreciate that. Hi, G. I got to do bedtime with my kids soon, too. So I don't know if you all got a copy of the draft mailer from Neil, but that is kind of the impetus for why I'm here. I just want to say thank you to all of you for taking time to hear from me tonight. The scope of the work of town moderator has changed a little bit since I was elected in March, and so we're navigating, and I am really grateful to have our town clerk, Carol Harless, town administrator, Neil Cass, and supervisor of the checklist, all of them, but especially Jean Lightfoot, who are helping to ensure that elections run smoothly this year. I know Jean Lightfoot is on the call too, in case you have questions that are more appropriate for her, or if she has some information that I need assistance with. I just want to let everyone to know tonight that we're working really hard to ensure that every eligible Hopkinton voter can cast their ballot safely this year in the state primary, which, in case anyone out there doesn't know, is on Tuesday, September 8th, and the general election, which is on Tuesday, November 3rd. We have met, we being the town administrator, town clerk, supervisor of the checklist, and myself have met regularly to start planning for the primary and the general election. We're developing policies and procedures in consultation with the Secretary of State's office to ensure everyone can vote safely. We are working to educate voters about that, but before I do that, I just want to go over with all of you what some of those measures and precautions are. First, we will be requesting that everyone who votes in person on election day wears a mask into the polling location. All of the election workers, including select board members, will be asked to wear masks as well and required to do that. And our ballot clerks will have plexiglass dividers for an additional layer of safety that the state is actually providing to us. And just flagging so you can prepare what mask you want to wear that day and match. We're also asking that just like we can't wear buttons or shirts that would be political, that we don't have masks coming into the polling place that would be campaign or political slogans because of electioneering, which is a new thing we all have to adapt to. The other measure we're taking it'll look a little different for the elections this year is we're going to have one-way traffic for the high school. So folks will enter at the typical backdoor entrance by the high school gymnasium. Then after they cast their ballot, they'll actually walk out the other exit in the gymnasium toward the cafeteria. And then the exit will be at the front. And this will make sure that we don't have people coming and going the same way or opposite ways in the building and cut down some of the foot traffic. We're asking everyone to adhere to 6-foot distancing guidelines. We'll have those taped out on the floors, and then just asking that people don't congregate in the building, which I know is sometimes the most fun part of election day, is getting to talk to all the neighbors. We're just asking folks to step outside to do that. As we get additional guidance from the state about election day procedures, I will be in consultation with Neil and the town clerk about that, and also make sure that you all get copies of that information. Dr. Benjamin Chan, who's a state epidemiologist, has been working with the Secretary of State's office and the Attorney General's office to make sure that everyone can be as safe as possible. Pardon me. I know all of the people I listed before who are working on this have been joining their colleagues on calls with the Secretary of State's office, that they are organized, because we are all living through this together and finding a new path forward together, and they've been pretty helpful. We're still waiting for their final guidance on some of the outstanding questions we have. And as I'm sure that you all know, there was legislation passed this year that enables anyone concerned about COVID-19 to vote absentee, which is to vote by mail, which is a safe and secure way for everyone to cast their ballot. Well, absentee ballots can also be returned via the mail or to the town clerk's office in person. We are trying to underscore that absentee ballots cannot be deposited in the drop box in front of town hall. Those are not staffed, and that is not an acceptable way to deposit your actual ballot. They have to be hand delivered inside the building. So I just want people to really know that. And of course, with everything we're hearing, the sooner you put your ballot in the mail, the better. And if people have other questions about voting absentee or about the primary, the town clerk's office is the best point of contact for that. Carol has the most information and is staffing that. So assuming that you got the mailer and you have it in front of you, a copy of it, I don't know if I can share my screen, if that makes sense, or I'll just go over it, assuming that you all have it in front of you.
We do have it. I don't know if Neil, you can throw it up.
I can.
Perfect. Thank you, Neil. So the goals of this mailer, which would be like the same kind of mailer that we've gotten for the school district and the town drive-by voting and meetings, is just to educate Hopkinton residents about the absentee voting process, especially given the new law adopted this year, which if anyone wants to look at it, it's HB 1266. The second is to educate Hopkinton residents about the important election dates. And we will be providing the absentee ballot request forms to Hopkinton residents inside of this mailer, so that they would have that in case folks don't have printer or easy access to a computer, and save them one stop at the town clerk's office. The other thing is to update Hopkinton residents about the policies and procedures that we're putting in place for election day due to COVID-19. It's really a public education campaign. We're also reaching out to different organizations in town, hoping to talk with both of the political committees in town, the Democrats and the Republicans, as well as groups like Rotary, if other people have suggestions, just to get out this information to make sure that there are as many people educating their members as possible about what voting looks like in 2020. So what we're coming to you for, I know that there has been some funding provided from the state for COVID expenses for the town, and there may be some grants that Neil can talk to you about too, specifically related to elections. But I just wanted to come forward with this draft and make sure that you all are comfortable with it, and then also to put forward the cost estimate we have for this. I know the last mailer the town did for the election, Neil said was printed in the town hall, which our printer is not quite up to the speed of doing that big of a job. I think it took about 7 hours for that to be processed. So we got a quote from a local printer, Speedy Printing, and it would be $326 to print 2,800 copies of this mailer. which is the number of households we have in Hopkinton for every door direct mailing. And that cost is about $500. We have volunteers who would be folding, assembling it. So we would save a little bit of money there, but it is a little bit of a cost to get out this information. So I just wanted to present it to you all and see what you think.
Sarah, this is Ken. Thank you for doing this. I think it's makes sense to do it. I had a question about, for people that want to mail back the ballot, what is the postage amount? Is it just a regular postage stamp?
You know, I don't know. Jean, do you know that? I think it's a stamp. But Jean, I would want to confirm that if you can pull her in, you know.
Sure. Actually, they told us, I'll have her, they told us it was a stamp, but I know when I was mailing one for someone,
It was more.
well, I didn't dare.
I've seen rumors around
There's
the
Jean.
Facebook that it's 2 stamps, but I'm not sure that makes sense.
I
So,
think that's safer.
hello, Jean.
This is Jean Lightfoot, 186. I don't know either. I've heard, I mean, I know the ballot is relatively small. It's only a single page. So you had that plus an envelope, plus outside input. I'm thinking it's got to be under an ounce. But let's check and get back on that. I think
Yeah, I haven't heard anything from the Secretary of State's office that it's more than a stamp, but we'll make sure.
In one of the conference calls, they said a stamp was fine. If you are registering to vote or anything beyond just the standard ballot, it is definitely more though.
that's exactly, I remember hearing that. That's right.
But I think this
Did
would be
I
Carol.
hear correctly that when the absentee ballots are completed, they either need to be mailed or hand delivered to the town clerk?
Correct. They have to be delivered to the town clerk by 5 p.m. the night before the election,
Okay. And
or
the
to be delivered on election day.
mailer, I think, says that you can drop absentee ballots in the Dropbox.
You can drop absentee ballot request forms in
Okay.
the Dropbox.
Right.
I
So the
think
form that is going in, yeah, it's confusing. This is why there's confusion. Sorry, there are kids here. Hold on.
Yeah, so that's, I was looking and I don't see where it says that in the mailer that you can put,
the underlined part on the first page, which makes it look like it's talking about completed, because it says when completed, return
Sure.
the absentee ballot. And then one of the things it mentions is the Dropbox.
Yeah, that's right there.
huh,
And that was
Yeah.
pointed out by an anonymous person. So I can't take credit for catching that, but I think we should.
yeah, so, yeah, that does seem a little, right, I agree, you could.
Yeah, we can
state that.
clarify that.
Yeah,
It is confusing because you can drop off a request form in the box, but you cannot drop off your ballot. When the absentee ballots, once you put in your request form, when you get your absentee ballot, the town clerk includes another set of instructions for how to deliver your actual ballot. So when they get their ballot, they'll get that additional information, but I understand why it's confusing and I think we can clarify that.
I think Carol is unmuted. She might have
Oh,
the
is
answer to the stamp question.
Hi, yes, this is Carol. The question to the stamp. I have received both. I have received one single stamp and I have received some with multiple stamps. So I think it's a question of your comfort level. I believe one stamp will get to me. 2 stamps is going to ensure it will get to me. How's that?
Thank you.
Fair enough.
You're welcome.
I also had a question, Sarah. I don't know if you were going to speak to this, but I saw we had some correspondence between you and Jean and Carol about whether or not to invite people to register by mail as well. And I didn't know if that got resolved. Or
So
if kind of an outstanding issue still.
Sure. So at this point, it is New Hampshire state law that you can register to vote via mail as well due to COVID. Because this mailer is going out so close to the election, what we would encourage for people to do is once they have their absentee ballot request form, when you send that to the town clerk's office, if you're not registered, the town clerk's office will send back the absentee ballot as well as your absentee or voter registration information. So you can fill both of those out at the same time and then send them back. And that just saves some of the lag time so that you're not cutting it so close to the election. So we are not including specific language on how to specifically register to vote, but it says in the mailer that you will get that information if you aren't registered. And I think some people don't know if they're registered or not. You can check your status on the Secretary of State's website, but that will happen automatically. If Carol receives your absentee ballot request form and you're not registered, that information will go with your absentee ballot.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Yeah, we can.
I just want to correct one thing that Sarah said in misspoke, I think, saying that the deadline for turning in the absentee ballot is the day before the election, of the election at 5 o'clock, and it says that on the mailer, but, you know, that was just, in case anyone heard that, it is the day of the election at 5.
Jean, you're a little hard to hear there. Were you saying just, I want to make sure people can hear that what the correct.
You can deliver your ballot to the polling place the day of the election until 5, but you can't go to
Okay.
the town clerk's office, right?
Right.
Jean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe because it says on the mailer, if you're returning your completed absentee ballot by mail, the clerk must receive it by 5 on election day. And it might be worth putting in there, like, note, you cannot hand deliver it to the clerk, to the town clerk tax collector office, but you can deliver it to the actual polling place. If I have that right? So you can walk it in to the polling place,
Yes.
but you cannot show up at town hall and try to give it to the clerk. But if it arrives via mail by 5 p.m. to the town hall on election day, that is okay. At least that's what you have here. If you're returning it by mail, the clerk has to receive it by 5 on election day.
Yes, unless Jean tells me otherwise.
Okay.
Oh, that was my understanding. I think it's Carol's as well. It's not Carol's to speak up. So I think that's the last time for any absentee ballots is 5 p.m. on election day.
Carol's hand is up. I think you're with us, Carol.
Okay.
Hi.
So what happens on election days, what has happened in the past, it's not going to change because of COVID-19. I leave the polls at a specific time and I go and I check the mail to receive any ballots. And I'm in contact with the post office. They know if they get any more after I've left the post office at that point, they let me know that they have received some. So, and then I come back, I receive them into the computer that I have them, and then I bring them to the polls, and then we will do with the absentee ballots. However, if someone does bring the ballot to the polls, it's obviously not going to be the person that requested the ballot, because that's the whole point of voting by absentee. So that would mean whoever's bringing it there has to be the agent to deliver the ballot to me, and there's going to be another form that has to be filled out. So my concern is that we're going to confuse everybody with what they're supposed to do. The best thing is, if you get an absentee ballot from here, you should cast it and mail it immediately and not wait.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't physically bring it to me to the polls that day, because the reason why you did it by absentee was because you weren't coming to the polls. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
This is Jane again. Can you hear me still?
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree with what Carol said. I think that with the COVID thing though, if the person themselves chooses to come and cast their own absentee ballot, then I would think that would be okay because they'd be showing their ID to cast it, and if not, they can go in and vote. I mean, but I would think I know they have to show their ID to cast the ballot directly with the town clerk. Isn't that right, Carol?
To get an absentee ballot, you do not have to show your ID.
Oh, I mean to cast it when they hand it in to you.
No, the absentee ballot is for if you're not coming to the polls that day, you get to vote by absentee. If you come to the polls, you have to vote at the poll.
although,
Because the absentee request form, you're signing off that you're not coming. One of the reasons you have to check the box why you're not coming to vote. And if you're not coming to vote because of COVID-19, you shouldn't be at the polls dropping me off a ballot.
I hear what you're saying, Carol, but I think I'm picking up on what Jean's flagging, and I could see this happening too, that folks might think that they can get an absentee ballot and like sort of just drop it at the polls because there's, it's sort of like less invasive to actually go in and go behind a curtain and vote versus just dropping off a sealed envelope that's your absentee ballot. So I do think we might need to clarify that because I could see how under normal circumstances, we wouldn't expect that to happen, but I could certainly see how people might think like, oh, I'm going to get an absentee ballot and I'm not actually going to go in behind the curtain. I'm just going to walk in and try to drop it off. So I just,
But the mailer is very clear to me, and it says if you are mailing it, it has to arrive by election day, 5 p.m. If you are hand delivering it, it has to be 5 p.m. the night before. So that's very clear to me.
I will interrupt to add, more layers of confusion because we still have not gotten the full guidance from the Secretary of State's office. I know they are currently looking into this very question about whether polling places can set up a drop box outside of the building to have people drop off their absentee ballots the day of, and whether that would be manned and if that's acceptable. So that is one of those things that we don't have exact guidance on yet, that we'll have to get back to you on, but that is why it is not included in the mailer, because we're still waiting for guidance on that.
Well, thank you for navigating this. It's so complicated. I really appreciate all of you figuring this out for our entire population.
yes, agreed.
Yeah, I would just, this is Jane again, I would just suggest that we not include anything about dropping it off at the polls because we don't know from the Secretary of State if that would be even allowable. So
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
Unless they're going to set up some sort of Dropbox system, I'm guessing we obviously want to encourage people to do the simplest thing, which as Carol said, is to get your ballot and get it in the mail ASAP. But I do think we should, to the extent we can figure this out, in case people ask or in case it actually happens, obviously we want to have answers.
Agreed.
One other thing to just flag is that looks like there's a reference to Tuesday, September 7th. And either the Tuesday should be Monday or the 7th should be the 8th.
Thank you, Stephen.
No
Gotta love a good copy edit.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stephen.
No problem.
There.
So Sarah and everyone, what else do you need from us at this point? Or what else can we do?
I think what I need is just a blessing to move forward with this mailing because it is an expenditure, which is your purview.
Um,
And it would be a grant expenditure, and we'll deal with the grant next.
right, okay.
Authorizing the expenditure, so really just, if there's no objection, I think it can move forward.
I fully support it.
Yeah, same. Absolutely.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you for all of your work, everyone.
Thank you to everyone.
Okay, so then we can move on to the grant piece. Yeah, so we covered the mailing, now the grant.
Sorry, I had it. Very similar to the other COVID grants. This is to accept the CARE funds for elections, which we have been allocated $17,475.19. And this would authorize me to sign the documents on behalf of the town for this.
And Neil, would we recover 100% of the expenditures or just 80% for the mailer?
This is a match, so it's a 20% match. Now, whether the match can go through the other gopher, I'm not clear on that yet, but we'll check on that.
You anticipated my next question.
I move that we do what this motion says.
I'll second.
I have a lot of background noise, that's why I was muted. Okay, great. So I'm a yes. Sabrina, Ken,
Yes.
Anna,
Yes.
Stephen,
Yes.
and Jeff.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we covered the two election pieces. I propose we go back up and knock off these two last old businesses. So we had George Park update next.
Sure, I sent you the update. The big thing I think related to this is that it appears with the survey that the softball field as requested does fit. So, and I think the board was open to that. So I guess if men's softball wants to make a proposal, we kind of have that location now.
Great.
You smiling under that beard, Jeff?
Yes.
No, I'm missing a playoff game right now.
Oh,
It's dark. Because it's dark and we don't have lights. See, if we had lights, we could play all night. But
Right.
But Jeff, it's raining.
Chickens.
oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
So there you
so an indoor stadium then.
We would do that.
Okay.
So I guess we'll wait to hear from the softball on what they want to do.
So,
if
Do
anything.
we have to change, as I recall, and I wasn't on the board at the time, but we adopted a master plan for the redevelopment / update of George Park. Now, this is different. And I know for certain that the men's softball league would love to have lights. The issue previously was that we might spend $50,000 or $60,000 or $70,000 on lighting and have it removed shortly thereafter because of the shortening of the field. So my question is, do we have to adopt this as the new master plan?
Maybe
And
we can put that on the agenda for next meeting and look at the master plan in light of the survey. Because I think, Jeff, you may be right. I don't remember.
Really, the only change is that the field can be extended. Everything's in basically the same location.
Okay.
Other than that. But we can do that for next meeting if you want to do it that way.
Yeah, to formalize it.
Yeah.
Because I thought the track has been rotated by 90 degrees, but again, I don't have the old one in front of me, so.
I'll add that to the next meeting.
Thank you.
And I know you will do this, Neil, but can you put in our folder for next time the previous plan and all the George Park information?
Sure.
Great. Thank you. All right. So last thing under old business is the road bond / refinancing.
I think we'll treat that as an update. I got that on Friday. There's some changes I want to make to that and add some additional information and make it easier for you all to look at. So that's, I think.
So that's the
I'll put
update
it in
now.
a format that will make some more sense.
Okay. That sounds good. Okay, so going back to new business, we would be on year-to-date financials.
Sure, you received those revenues. The things I would note is it looks like interest and penalties are way down, largely because of the late lien in the process that got pushed off. Motor vehicle permits are great. Those are doing well. State and forest land is done for the year. Both building department, transfer center, we're watching closely. There may be some concerns there. And bank interest is doing excellently. On the expense side, anything that is an issue is mostly timing. And cemetery, well, both emergency management, which is COVID expense, and cemetery, emergency management will be reimbursed by the grant, and cemeteries are reimbursed by the trust funds to bring those in line. So those look high, but both of those will come out. So really, we're not in bad shape. It's very nice to be reporting with real budget numbers this month. And so I think there are no surprises.
Okay, I guess everybody's looking at me. Neil, on the pilot revenues for St. Methodius, are they just simply late, or is there an issue there?
They're just simply late.
Okay, because I know they didn't open this year, so I didn't know if they're
Right. Well, we'll follow up. That we needed to follow up with them anyways.
okay. Primex, we had a few months ago, we had heard that they would be providing us with some kind of a rebate or whatever. Do you know how much we'd be getting back or getting credited from them?
That was already built into the budget.
Okay.
The advantage of doing the budget in July.
Okay. And
Are you recommending that for next year, Neil?
I am not.
nor am I.
No matter what the method, I support town meeting in March.
And in our budget discussions, we had, I believe, shifted more of the capital costs relating to the sewer to the sewer users. Now, have they, as the sewer committee, revised the tariff to reflect that?
No.
Okay. I don't know if that's something you want to tell the committee that they have to do.
Well, you should probably meet with them. This was your.
Who's on the committee?
Are you, we can set that up. They have not met recently.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks, Ken. All right, we are on sale of town property.
Sure. I think Anna asked for this. Let me pull up. Okay, so there
Yeah.
are two things related to this that I'll point out, and then on the would help if I shared so you were looking at the same thing I am. There we go. This is on the first section. The first issue that has come up recently is this 25924, which is a triangle, and you don't have to make a decision tonight, but a triangle near Beach Hill School that is part of an old road, and they have shown some interest in purchasing that. That would have to be a town meeting vote, and they know that to sell that. So that's the first thing. And then I think the other questions are on the properties acquired by tax deed. And I know we have had somebody interested. Basically, my suggestion is that these do get auctioned off as soon as we complete this year's tax deeding process. Normally that would be completed, that would have been completed a long time ago, but it was put on hold because of COVID. So that it was sort of the intent. These are the properties that you can sell because they are tax deeded properties. So that would be my suggestion. You also could put them out to bid separately if and do it right away if you wanted to do that with any of these. But I think given where I anticipate we will be with the deeding based on where we were last year, it might make sense to do one auction and do it all at once.
And are the values here near the assessed value?
Yes, they are.
Thank you.
Neil,
Yeah.
what's the cost to use an auctioneer?
It's a certain percentage. I think it's
12, I think.
Yeah, that sounds right. I was going to say 10 to 15.
Okay.
They
does
get
that
12
come
on
out of-
one side and 12 on the other.
Okay, that was my next question: is who pays for the auctioneer?
It comes out of the price that you receive. So, and also if it's an auctioneer that does this all the time, they are set up to do this following correct procedures and all of that, which is helpful too.
Is that how we typically dispose of tax deeded property, by auction?
We've done it. We've put it out to sealed bid. The board also in some parcels negotiated with the neighbors because they were like not illegal, but subpar lots. One actually had
It's hard to sell a landlocked lot unless you sell it to the neighbor, the abutter.
Yeah, it is.
Right, and in some of the cases, that's negotiations were done. It happened to be one on the Kentucky River, which was merged with the lot next door, sold with that requirement. One on Rolfe Pond, the same thing. It had to be merged into one lot, which made the new lot at least closer to compliance.
And I missed it, but when did you say the tax deeding would be done for this year?
The lien process has started back up, so I have to check with Carol when that will be done, but it will be this fall.
Okay. So it's either we could put these out for bid now or wait and do all of them at auction sometime in the fall or early winter.
Right.
Okay. I'm fine waiting. I don't know of a reason to get these out now unless somebody else feels otherwise.
I think it makes sense to do it all together.
For
Yep.
for either of the landlocked properties, do we know if any of the abutters are interested?
No, but we would certainly send them information on it when that time came.
I'm agreeable to the approach you've outlined.
I will say the person who asked me to put this on our agenda is interested in one of the parcels. So that's, please stop. That's why this is coming up now.
Okay. All right, I think we can move on. You don't need a motion or anything, right, Neil?
Nope, but we'll bring it forward as soon as that. And I'll make sure I get you the date of when deeding's complete.
Okay. All right, next on new business, town treasurer resignation.
All received the resignation of Kevin Davis effective at the end of August. So this is an elected position, but when it is vacant, the board fills that.
So, okay, end of August does not give us much time. I think, didn't he say, was it in the letter or maybe the cover email, that he would be willing to potentially stay on a little bit longer if we needed?
I think he did. And
Well, so I guess, I don't know, I mean, what do we do without a town treasurer?
We do have a deputy, but he did not seem to think that person wanted to take on that role.
I think we need to find a new treasurer.
Yes, indeed.
I know there's someone that I spoke to Kevin before he submitted the letter, and thank you, Kevin, for serving as town treasurer, by the way. And I haven't reached out to this person yet because Kevin hadn't submitted this resignation yet, so it wasn't really official. But I will reach out and see if this person is interested.
And Neil, could you remind us of what the pay is and about how many hours a week are required?
I'm actually going to be meeting with Kevin and I'll get the hours. The pay is $500 a month, $6,000 a year. And it's signing checks and reconciling and so, all of that stuff. So, but I'm not exactly sure how many hours, and I think it fluctuates. There are times when it's very few hours, and other times, like monthly, at some point it's a little more.
Okay, so Stephen, hopefully your person will work out because I have no one that I can think of. If anyone else has any thoughts on potential folks in case Stevens doesn't pan out, that would be great.
See what I can do.
And thank you, Kevin. You'll be missed, even though I don't even think he's on, but anyway. All right, we good to move on? Next on new business is the mask ordinance. So I asked Neil to put this on just because I've heard from a few folks in town and I've sort of been hearing from people consistently for, a while now about whether or not we've considered this. And it seems like more and more towns are either moving forward with ordinances or at least talking about them. I know Concord has it on their radar. Exeter was another one. I think Keene's considering it. And obviously there was, Nashua did actually enact a new ordinance and that withstood a legal challenge. So I just wanted to discuss it because I think it's something we need to be talking about and be thinking about. I don't know if anyone else has heard from folks in town, but my sense from being out and about is that people in this town do a pretty decent job of wearing masks when they're out. Although I think, there's a fair number of people who you might see in the grocery stores and otherwise who aren't. I think the science is obviously evolving, but everything seems to be pointing to the fact that masks generally help stop the spread of coronavirus. I think there's very legitimate questions around like enforcement, and different towns seem to be dealing with this in different ways, but you know, that's a very real issue. And anyway, so I just wanted to bring it up and see if others had heard any feedback on this or if anyone has opinions on it.
I'm generally certainly in favor of some kind of a mask ordinance. To me, the enforcement would be the biggest question. And I would be also saying, well, I think I want to wait and see what Concord does. And on the other side, what Henniker does, where they have a college.
Henniker, I think, already voted theirs down, I believe.
It was a 3-2 vote against.
Yeah.
I think that was last week.
Yeah.
I will say that I had heard no discussion until this was on our agenda. And after it was on the agenda, I heard from 5 different people who thought we were out of our minds.
And
Out of
why?
our minds for considering a mask ordinance?
Overreaching.
It's a little strong, but okay.
One business owner dealing with it who has a business out of town who, you know, has a chief of police coming in his establishment harassing his customers. And, you know, I'm sure.
Sorry,
that's
just to clarify, can I just clarify? Do you mean a chief of police coming in to enforce an ordinance?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a little different from harassing.
Following them into the shop and making a scene in the shop is different than waiting for them to come out and enforcing the ordinance at that time. It's not good for business any more than it was good for business when we had people from one of the committees in town screaming at one of our businesses out in front of the business. And, you know, the numbers don't justify it. Our infection rate is exceptionally low. You know, people in town do a very good job as near as I can tell. You know, I never go anywhere and see a bunch of people. I'll grant you that at Market Basket, there are people up in Warner but we're not going to affect that anyway. Here in town, I think people are responsible, and I think we're overreaching. I mean, you know, virtually all of the towns that have ordinances are college towns.
I think I have 2 kind of thoughts on this. One, if we are going to go in this direction, I think we need to check with town council and just get their opinion on our legal authority to require a mask ordinance. And even if that is less than rock solid, I mean, I'm open to doing one for the simple reason that you know, I know our infection rates are super low right now, and that's good. And it's a testament to how people have taken this seriously. But most of the science I've seen says that there is a second wave. Wave maybe not be the right word, but there is going to be a surge at some point in the fall or the early winter. And whereas masks are one of the best ways to limit the spread, I think it would be wise of us to put something in place to make sure that any increase here is as low as possible. And I think that if there definitely are some enforcement questions that need to be answered, and there's definitely a question about scope, you know, how broadly is this going to apply that we need to work out. But I do think that generally it's worth pursuing.
Anna, you're muted still. Okay. Ken, did you already? Oh no, here we are, Anna.
I will just point out that we've had 7 cases in 6 months. 3 of those in the first month, 4 in the 5 months since.
Yeah, so confirmed cases. I mean, there is some question around folks who have it and aren't tested or aren't going into the DHHS database for whatever reason. But yes, point well taken that numbers are low, but I do think there's a grain of salt there that there's most likely other people walking around who may be asymptomatic or just haven't gotten tested or don't realize they have it. But I would also just agree with Stephen that, you know, there's this notion that, well, we don't need an ordinance because our numbers are low, but it's like, in order to keep numbers low, people need to keep acting responsibly and doing things like wearing masks when they can't be socially distanced. So anyway, Anna, were you gonna say something?
Sorry, I just had to shoo my people out. Yeah, I mean, I guess I agree with Stephen and what you've said, Sabrina, that it does feel like now is the time to be proactive about it. I think as school gets back in session, I think our risks go up. I think as we're about to go into bike week, our risks go up. Labor Day weekend's coming, our risks go up. So I think there are a lot of things coming down the pike that point to being proactive. And I agree also that this could take multiple forms. So that's something we could talk about. And just, yeah, I mean, I guess that's really all I have to say, but, you know, it's not, people have not said to me, please enact a mask ordinance, but it has been talked about in terms of, well, are we going to do anything about it? You know, I don't think that it's folks banging down the doors asking for it, but it's more like gee, is there anything we can do about this? So I think that, to echo the previous points, that now is the time to be proactive. And because our individual businesses are not mandating masks, it might help encourage folks to wear masks if they're not otherwise inclined to do so. Because I know that I am uncomfortable going into establishments that are not requiring masks. I choose to spend my dollars at places that are requiring masks because it makes me feel safer. So, and I'm one person, but I know I'm not alone.
Ken, did you want to say something?
I agree with the concept of the mask ordinance and the thought of being proactive. And certainly Kathy and I, we don't go into any establishments that don't require masks. And the one thing I had said before is I would wonder if we would want to wait, and if Concord implements it, then we go forward, as opposed to sort of being an island.
Yeah, one other thought I just was looking at, I don't know if anyone had a chance to look at the articles I sent, but NHGR has like a map, and it's not a ton of towns, but I will say New Hampshire is I believe we're the only state in New England that doesn't have a mandate, but I think New Hampshire's done okay with a mixture of luck and living in a rural state and a few other factors. But I think as colleges open up, you know, we might not be in a college town, but we're next to a town that's a college town. And just what I've read about outbreaks, it doesn't take much for things to get rolling. And so I just would say I don't want to have a false sense of security in terms of our numbers. I mean, I feel the same way about our schools opening, that we can sit here and look at data, and yes, it's helpful, but I don't think we can be like, well, we're fine. We don't need to be more proactive. We don't need to be that concerned, because things can switch very quickly based on what we've seen in other states and regions. So I was just looking to get the conversation going and see what people's initial thoughts were. And I also haven't heard, I don't think I've heard from anyone who definitively was saying like, we really want you to do this, but certainly people are saying we should consider it and talk about it. So Jeff, it's interesting to hear from you and the folks you've heard from, because I have not heard that. So that's helpful. So I don't know. I mean, I wasn't looking to like, make any decisions tonight. I just wanted to talk about it. And I agree with Stephen, like, a good, if we're interested in keeping the conversation going, it might be helpful just to check in with council just to get a quick, opinion on if this is super fraught. I mean, obviously, I think it's within our authority to create an ordinance, and then, Nashua is an example where it was upheld in court. So I don't know what exactly town council would tell us, but it would probably be helpful to touch base before we.
Well, cities have a little different powers than towns do.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's worth checking in with town council. And I would suggest that if we want to go down this road, and it sounds like at least a majority of us do, that we have a public hearing and hear from people in town, maybe a little more formally.
Yeah.
Because I think that if we put out there that we're considering this, I think that'll put people on notice to, give us some feedback.
Yeah.
And it looks like that's what Concord is doing. They're drafting an ordinance. I'm just looking at the article right now. They're drafting an ordinance and posting it on the 17th. Is that today? And then having a public hearing on August 31st.
I think we'd also want to get some input from Chief Pecora.
Yeah, we should definitely loop our law enforcement in on this because it will come to them to enforce it.
So, I mean, I suppose if we spoke to town council and they were like, you don't have authority to do this, that sort of ends the conversation. So maybe we can start there. I'm just thinking about our schedule. I suppose we could try to get an answer from them and then potentially put it out for, the public for the 31st, even if we don't have like a draft ordinance, because I guess if the response is overwhelmingly not to pursue it, then, I don't know where that leaves us, but, or we could wait. I just don't want to push it off too much because I think I like Concord's approach, but I just don't know about getting a draft going in time for our next, or, it will just out like several meetings, I'm afraid.
Yeah, so maybe the only other town, not city, that has one is Enfield. And I mean, they are a town with a select board and that is in effect, so.
I think Newmarket has one also.
Yeah, you do.
Hanover
does, right? But yeah, they've got a council.
And Durham, but I think most of those places have a charter, so they run under a different form. But so we should check on that. I know Enfield has a town manager, so they do have a different form of government.
Okay.
So why don't we start with council, and then I guess we can see, if we put it on the next meeting agenda, then so be it. Or if we feel like we need more time to figure out things on our end before presenting it to the public, then we can just push it off to September. So, Neil.
Just to be clear, well, I'll talk to council, but do you want it on the agenda as a public discussion, or are you going to discuss it further then?
Right, because I guess, right. So if we could move forward with an ordinance, then we do have to have a public hearing on it, right? Yeah.
But by then you would have to have a public hearing, you would have to have a written ordinance.
Right, yeah.
It sounds to me like if we can go forward, we're probably looking at a month before we can have a public hearing. Because we'll have to you'll have to get feedback from council. We'll talk about it at the next meeting. If we can go forward, we'll at that point put pen to paper. So we're looking at least a month before we can have a public hearing, assuming that's possible.
Although we could have a public hearing that's not our regularly scheduled select board meeting. So we could, let's talk about it next week and then, or in 2 weeks. And then, with whatever sense of urgency we feel, we can decide if we want to try to draft something sooner than 2 more weeks or whatever.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. All right, so we'll talk to council and go from there, if everyone's okay with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that discussion. Last thing under new business is Conservation Commission donation.
Sure. Marie Burns has donated or is in the process of donating $1,000 to the Conservation Commission Fund, which they can accept with your approval. So if you would be willing to give your approval for them to accept that into the Conservation Fund, that would be great.
And that's with no strings attached?
Correct. It's for the land purchase. I think it has to do, they'll probably use it to help defray the costs of the land that's in that neighborhood, around Kimball Pond, which they've already purchased.
I'll move such.
Second.
Okay, Sabrina's yes, Ken,
Yes.
Anna,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Stephen,
Yes.
okay. All right, so Neil, that brings us to town administrator updates.
Sure. I don't really have much that you haven't already covered, pretty much, but I'm going to ask, we did receive, which I'm going to put up, the invoice for the fire truck, which they hope to deliver before your next meeting. It came in later than your consent agenda. So if you're willing, you've talked about this before, this is the amount as designated. If you could vote to approve this, then we can cut the check and have it ready and they can actually deliver before your next meeting, if you're willing to do that.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Sabrina's yes, Ken,
Yes.
Anna,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes, but I have a question.
Sure.
This seems well below the number that we approved. Is that, am I wrong?
This is the actual truck without the equipment.
Got it. Thank you.
And the equipment invoices will come.
Got it.
I wish it were.
did I get you, Stephen?
No, yes.
All right. Jeff, were you a yes? Oh, yes,
Yeah.
with a question. Okay, thank you.
And that's all I had for updates.
Okay, great. So
Can
I guess,
ask a question for an update?
what's that?
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yeah,
Wondering about the land swap situation.
right.
Our attorney, who is Tim Britton, has been talking directly to the state, finishing that up. So since I've been back, I haven't checked, but I will check this week and find out where that's at.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. So we still have other to go to, but before that we have public forum, so we can do that right now. If anyone wants to talk, feel free to raise your hand. It looks like there's one call-in.
The call-in, if they wish to raise their hand, can press *9.
All right. Anybody for public comment?
There we go.
All right.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, my name's Catherine Matteo. I'm 108 Park Ave. I just want to say I'm not anti-mask at all. I wear a mask whenever I go into public places. I don't really care who enforces it or not, but I have the luxury of not having any, serious underlying health conditions and whatnot. I do think an ordinance is unenforceable, especially in a small town like this, and I think it's way too much overreach. That's all I want to say.
Okay, thank you for that comment.
All right, one other thing is, I think if we are at the point where we feel like we have to enforce mass usage in the town, then the schools will probably have to be 100% remote. If things have gone to that point where people have to be in the town.
Yeah. Yes, that's an interesting thought.
Thank
All
you.
right, well, thank you for that.
I don't see any others.
Anybody else? Going once, going twice. All right, thank you everyone who joined us. And then we have other. Does anyone have anything else for other for discussion?
And we have one non-public under C, reputation.
Okay. So if there's no, we've got one hand up. Okay. Getting in under the wire. Nope, no longer up. Okay. All right, so I think we will thank everyone for joining us, and we're gonna go into non-public, and then we will not be doing anything else. We'll be adjourning the meeting. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robin.
Bye.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Bye.
Do you want to move to go in and vote?
You clear the attendees?
He's doing it. I vote we move to non-public session under RSA, whatever it is.
Yeah. RSA 91A3, I forget which little number. Okay.
C.
C, reputation. Sabrina's yes. Anna?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Steven?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
And then we will be discussing a further business after coming out of non-public. We will just adjourn.
Correct.
So close. One more. Okay.
All right.
And the recording.
Good idea.